Welcome to Lost Without Japan, a travel podcast about the life-changing experiences of exploring Japan and those moments we would be lost without. For your listening pleasure, allow me to introduce your very own Kanko Guido, Michael.
Welcome to a special Lost Without Moments bonus interview episode of the Lost Without Japan podcast. Our bi-weekly podcast is focused on getting you to Japan for your first visit or to make the next adventure to Japan even better than your last visit. Today's special interview episode is with someone who has experienced a lot in Japan that most people will never get to, and probably thankfully to that. But what do you do when events in your life have you end up having to work and live in Japan illegally? This is the story I have heard countless times and have wanted to share with you, the audience, for quite some time. Like I'd say, like for at least the last 3 years of doing the podcast. And I have finally pestered one of my oldest friends long enough that he is here with us today to do that. I'm not sure if the statute of limitations has passed for my friend to not have any blowback from his time in Japan. But for the purpose of today's show, we're going to be calling him Jim. Jim and I have shared a love of Japan since we first met, which we continue to have in common today. He's one of the first people I know that I will invite to visit me in Japan after I move there. Although I'll probably leave out the sitting on wrought iron furniture during a thunderstorm after, a huge anime binge when you do visit, my friend. This is your director of travel for TKIC Studio Productions, coming to you with positive thoughts and excitement for your next journey to Japan and his own return in late 2024. Thank you all for giving me a bit of your time today, and I truly hope this podcast finds you in a good place or on the path to a better one, no matter how it may seem at this moment. My belief is that we can all use a beacon like this in our lives to help guide us during these times, and I hope that Japan, along with this show, will become that for you. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning Lost Without listener, thank you again for your time and returning once more. For today's show, let me introduce my oldest friend, Jim. I must say, my friend, no matter how much time has passed between hanging out with you and through all of us juggling just life, our families, kids, all those different things, we're always able to pick back up as if we just saw each other yesterday. And I'm thankful we ended up with some time today to be able to record together and, even back more years than I care to even think about ending up in the same class together so that we are, able to continue to hang out today. Welcome, Jim.
Oh, it's nice to be here, especially since if folks don't know, Mike is an aficionado for fine things to drink. So I always know I have something to sip on when I come.
And we are definitely doing that today, even though this is not the Good Times episode. We are we are going to enjoy ourselves while we do so today. Jim, I just want to give you a brief moment to kind of introduce yourself and kind of start that introduction of what first ended up attracting you to Japan.
Oh, well. Yeah, Mike and I guess we're from an older generation. So I don't know how many young people are down with this sort of podcast. I hope a lot. But there was a time, you may not believe, that the only time you could watch anime was if you knew like which comic book store had these bootleg videos in the basement that were probably subtitled by some people, maybe your own age. We don't know. So like, there was a time where it was very much like contraband that we passed around, and Japan was like a very mysterious and interesting thing. And so the idea of of like learning some of the languages and understanding some of the cultural references that no one bothered to explain in the various animes, your Sailor Moons and your Venus Wars and whatnot. Uh, that was kind of a big deal, and it was kind of a low key goal of mine since I was an adolescent, I'm sure.
I know we would watch those different Ghibli movies, and I remember we'd come across somebody else at school that had the same movie, but a different subtitling because it was just fan done, and you'd end up with two totally different movies off of two different fan subs, and it completely changed the movie. And then being able to watch those movies later on when they were the actual like laser discs or whatever copies of it, and you're like, oh, this is what's going on.
And maybe even retrospect, like kind of understanding why they may have translated it the way they did. Like, oh, the Japanese is really vague. It could have meant a lot of things, I guess, if they weren't really paying attention to what was going on.
We'd sit there with our VHS tapes and watch. We were the cool kids in school. I'm pretty sure saying that already makes me not as cool. But we were, and rather than go to a dance, it was like prom. It might have been prom. I don't remember what it was. It was one of those. But we decided to spend a weekend just watching nothing but subtitled anime, and. We watched Lotus War, like Record of Lotus Wars, like a couple different things. And I to this day still remember fondly us turning off the TV after spending, I mean, I don't know how many hours that series was for us to watch, but we pretty much did that nonstop. And we turned on regular TV, and both of us after a bit looked at each other like, can you understand what they're saying? And we're both like, no. And we're like, oh, it's in English. There's no subtitles.
Listen, to this day, I watch all TV with subtitles on. Like, I wouldn't have understood what on earth was going on with Game of Thrones if I wasn't watching it in subtitles. Like, hearing is overrated.
It really is. It really is. It's like I've got subtitles on everything. It's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a life skill.
Yeah.
But what is some of your favorite animes that you'd like to share, my friend?
Oh wow. I guess my favorite animes is anything that will subvert expectations. Because if you know anything about Japanese culture in terms of media, and it's all about tropes and conventions, like people expecting a certain pattern, and that's the pattern you're going to get. And wow, the isekai, pattern started, and I guess we're not over it. We're going to have more of those. So I really enjoy things that subvert those. So to that end, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, like just it subverted all of the tropes for big robot battles. Like, oh, it turns out it's not a robot, it's an alien, and you're inside of it. Yay. It's not fun piloting these things, actually. It's terrible, right? Gosh, what else? There's what was the isekai one that names escape me, but the main character, he's just terrible at everything. He's not overpowered or anything. His only power is he dies and then he comes back to life, like at a reset point. And that's the show. Like, it was basically like, what if isekais were actually terrible? And yes. There's no harem actually, and everyone kind of is not into you at all. And so that's I love that they set up these patterns, and then you have these artists come along and just demolish them, and that's the stuff I really love. I got to mention Madoka, right? Like, there's the Madoka Magica, right? Also did that beautifully. That's my jam.
It's all good. It's all good. How many times were you, and have you to this point been able to visit Japan, my friend?
2 times, which is not very many, I think. But the last one lasted a while.
You made it count, I think, if anything. And I know we were talking, like, you're already planning a return. So that's going to be good, my friend. And like I said, I can't wait till I'm living there, because that'll be just, you'll have a room for you, your son, your daughters, like whatever. Just, like just come on over. It's fine. It's good. So, but I got to tell you, like beating me to Japan had always made me envious, / jealous of you, my friend, especially since you were able to live there for a while. Um, could you go ahead and like just I guess talk about your two different trips and like loosely, and then we can go into detail more about when you were living there on kind of illicit in illicit ways.
Oh yeah, well we'll get to that. So my first trip was sort of college sponsored. I went with a group. It was a tour. It was titled. It was nicely scheduled. It's a good way to go anywhere the first time, right? Go with people who know what they're doing and where things are sort of decided for you. If you can travel that way, the first time, I recommend it. Um, where are we going today? Don't worry, bus is going to pick you up. It's fine. And that was a good mix of things. Went to like a pottery factory. We went to see Kabuki. We went to Tokyo. So it was a whirlwind tour. I think it was only 2 weeks, but I went there with my Japanese language class in college.
Like you said, that's a great way. I remember like you coming back, from that, just talking about different things, and be it not what it was now. It's not like I could just go look up everything that you did, like online to, see videos of people, that kind of went through similar things. So it was definitely there. And then
Yeah.
you
this was this was pre Google and all that stuff. So.
But I remember, was it? I don't know if it was that trip or when you came back the second time that you brought back the boken, the wooden practice sword that I still use to, keep my family safe to this day. Like we could talk about that too. But I was like, that was always like one of the most awesome things. And like having traveled to Japan after that, realized how much of a pain in the like derriere that had to be to like bring back. I don't know. Because
Look,
people,
but it was so great though, because like I spent I think so much of my uh my money that I had reserved for omiyagi for like gifts and stuff on that, because like once you find a bokuto, you're like, yeah, that's the thing I'm going to carry with. And everyone who like runs across it, like, yeah, I get it. That's why, of course, you bought this. And at least you didn't buy a real katana. Like, so respect. like you could have been an even bigger dweeb, but at least you got the wooden practice one.
I still tell myself that I'm like set for after my move, so I can start picking that up, and actually put it to use. Yeah, and just like this has been aged.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, it's good for home defense. Like, look, I'm not advocating crime, but if you break into someone's house and they pull out a bokuto, just turn around and walk away.
That's right. They're just like, oh man, I fucked up.
This guy's about to practice on me.
Well, your first trip was very, scheduled. Then I'm like, you had a great time. It's kind of like I almost equate that to when I went with Fulbright, where everything we did was led with a babysitter or someone guiding us along the way, and I loved it. It was amazing. It was wonderful. It made me. I don't know if it was the same for you, but like made me fall in love with the country. Like when I was there, I was like, I already liked it, but going there, I was like, oh no, like this is the place. I'm like, I love this place so much afterwards. How did you end up going back the second time then?
So, I think I may have annoyed my way into it. I was really enjoyed it, and I was basically asking my teacher, "How can I go back? How can I go back? This is great, but what would be a next step?" And so he was like, "We're kind of looking at the JET program and all those other things." And he's like, or listen, maybe we can pilot our own program. And uh, you know, not my proudest moment. I don't think I helped this pilot program out and did it any favors. He might even still be mad at me to this day. I don't know. I haven't asked him, but And basically, he has family there. Of course, he was Japanese. He was my teacher, and he has friends there. And he's like, "Let me pull some strings and get you into a school to teach English. You'll learn Japan, and then you'll teach English, and then you'll get your work visa, and we'll take it from there." And I was all about it, right? So it wasn't the JET program. It was the something else. It was the gym program.
Yeah,
yeah, or it would have been, except for a series of events, which we can get into.
It's perfect, my friend. Anything you want to share? I said that's good. Like, I know you were there.
Yeah. I don't know how many of the nitty gritty details I went in. Well, the idea was that I would spend 2 semesters intensive Japanese training. So I went to this school that teaches intensive Japanese, but I was the only English speaker. Everybody else was from China, which is pretty cool because I made a lot of Chinese friends, right? And we could only speak Japanese to each other. So in terms of like speaking, it was great practice. But like, look, Mike, I don't know if you knew anything about me, but there's this thing about me and homework.
We were just talking about that.
We were just talking about that. Yeah, we don't get along. Look, I'm sure there's words for that now. There's things like they say like, oh, neurodivergent or ADHD. We didn't have words for that then, right? It was just like, I don't wanna. I don't know why. I just don't. I can't. And so I was way behind on my homework all the time. My worksheets, my papers, everything was way behind. So already off to a great start, right? And there, I'm supposed to be training to become a teacher, and I'm like, I have a D. Look, if you have an all expense paid trip to another country, do your homework. I think that's where like this all my advice will begin and end with this story. That's not the only reason that this all fell apart. It gets funnier, but that was like definitely didn't help. I don't know if I could just keep going. I might be just totally trashing your script right now.
Oh no, go for it, my friend. There's like I'm happy to talk about it. That's like I figured this would be the bulk of the time, so I'm like that's fine because how you end up, it leads to some fun things with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to ruin it either. So like you could just keep on going, my friend. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I just had to take a drink of my gin and then keep going. So at this time, the consulate said like, okay, well, you need to fill in this paperwork to apply for your work visa, and I didn't have any, and I said, well, how do I get the paperwork to fill it out? Again, folks, pre-internet, it's not like I can go to a website and grab a PDF, right? So I'm like, I need to fill out papers. I need the papers to fill out. Someone needs to like hand them to me or send them to this address or something. And they're like, well, the thing is like you're under 18. Under 18, under 20, under some age. Gosh, I don't remember how old I was then. But so your parent needs to do it, right, and sponsor you. And so I need to actually send it to my dad, who could sponsor me with bank accounts, and he was traveling in Germany. I was like, well, how do I get it to him then? And so the consulate said, okay, we'll fax it to the school that you're Did I mention I'm living at the school? I didn't mention that yet. I didn't have an apartment. So I got there and they didn't have a place to put me. So I lived in a classroom and I washed myself in the bathroom and I had to take my like shower in the sink before the students showed up at 8 a.m. That was just a fun aside, but I just thought I would throw that out there. And so they faxed it to the phone number of the school and I got the stuff and I sent it. I overnighted it to Germany to the office where my dad was working. And he was kind enough to sign it. I'm sure he rolled his eyes like, what is this nonsense? And then sent it back. And then I submitted it and then struggled with homework for the next 2 months. 2 months later, I was rejected. And the reason they rejected was because it needs to be filled out on an official paperwork. And this is a fax copy. And I was like, but you faxed it to me.
Like, yeah.
But there was no point in protesting. And even the headmaster at the school, and I'm sure like if my grades were better, he probably would have gone to bat for me. But he was like, oh, well, it didn't work out. Bye. At that point, I was pretty devastated. Like I had just like 2 days before finally got an apartment and finally got it kind of furnished. and gotten into my routine. And like there's other details that like the headmaster of the school lent me his bicycle, and then I parked it at my apartment, and then it disappeared, and it turns out that like you're not allowed to like just leave it there. So someone took it like on an official basis, and then they sent the headmaster like a ticket to come get it back. So like this guy hates me. And which is rough because like I don't mind people like hating me for the stupid crap that I do, but it reflected badly on my teacher who like stuck his neck out and got me there. So that bad. But he came through anyway, and he's like, look, go stay with my family member for a couple of days. I'm going to figure something out. And so I did. And so like I'm on day 60 of my 90-day tourist visa, which I was not able to turn into a work visa, keep in mind, right? So I got, ostensibly a month left. So his idea is like, well, we're just going to kill time. And while I'm there, I don't want to mooch off his family member for an entire month. And he doesn't want me to do that either. So he finds a gig for me where I can work in order to, basically just in exchange for room and board. And the gig is the same guy. I don't know if I'm giving too much information, but there's like probably one person on the whole internet who's going to know who I'm talking about. But the same guy who like owns the pottery factory that we toured before also happens to own a wedding hall, and the wedding hall is a Western style wedding hall, which means it's like it's pretending to be Christian, but it's not religious. So you like wear white in a tuxedo, and you have a priest or a guy pretending to be a priest, right? So like instead of having the traditional Shinto wedding, you can do like a Hollywood like Western style wedding. And they always needed help, and he's like, "Oh, well, I would love to have like a white guy standing around in my Western style wedding because that how authentic, right?" And so that was the gig. I would go there and I would bartend a little, and I'd wait tables, and I would talk to guests in my broken Japanese, and in exchange for room and board. Um, no, not to get too far ahead of myself here, but I stayed there for way longer than a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. My original return tickets were for 1 year, and the idea being I would get my visa and then work for like an entire year or more, and then just change the tickets. But then when my work visa didn't come through, I just didn't bother changing my tickets. So I was like, well, here's the day I leave. What do we do to then?
Love it, buddy. I love it. Like, it's got to be something too. I'm like, you had room and board covered, which, pretty sweet. I'm like, you're bringing some business in, for, as being the, a part of all that. They're like, hey, look, there's this guy. It's like, look how official we are. Like, you want to spend your money with us. I mean, that's good. And so like for the time was here, like, was that pretty much what you were doing your whole time until you left? Or like, what else were you getting up to besides like, working at the,
Right.
The faux wedding hall?
Well, let me look. I don't know how many of your audience knows what it's like to be an illegal immigrant, but you don't spend a lot of time sightseeing. So pretty much, and it's rough work, right? So it's the wedding hall opens. You think people don't have weddings in the morning, but some of them do. But the idea is like you got to be there at 4, and then the weddings happen in the evening. Like I don't mean get up at 4. I mean be there cleaning at 4, and the weddings happen in the evening, of course, and they last until long because this is like the celebration of people's lives, and they're getting drunk, and then you gotta console the new father of the bride who's letting this deadbeat into his family like every single day, right? And so it goes until late, and then you got to stay and clean up after, right? And so you're done at like 2, and you got to be back at work at 4. And you do this every day and on weekends. Look, I don't know how I did it. I definitely would not be able to do that today. But after a while, like the days fly by and the lack of sleep just collects. And I basically lived in other people's weddings for almost a year. It was
how
a
many
trip.
pictures? It's like wonder how many pictures you could find of you, back then. If in other people's wedding books, they're like, hey, those wedding photos. Hey, there's me.
I never thought about that until this very moment. A lot. Oh my gosh. Any listeners in Japan, go into your parents' wedding pictures and see if you can find a short white dude who looks exhausted.
He's dead on the outside and inside.
Oh gosh.
But it makes sense not to get out and about where they might have to ask for your your passport or ask you questions about what you're doing there. That definitely does. And you said it was multiple days, it's just 7 days a week. This is pretty much what you're doing. So your life was just there, and that's it. Like that's.
It is. And I would mention that I also didn't have any spending money, right? So I ate at the food at the wedding hall, which by the way was like gourmet stuff. So I am sitting there like shark fin soup again, boo. Like I ate the like most expensive, ridiculous stuff because it was all I had to eat. And I ate it off other people's tables because like we were allowed to do that. Like they didn't touch the soup, they didn't eat the stuff. Like you can do whatever you want. We drank a lot of champagne. Listen, Mike, do you know how people work those hours for that long? They're drunk the entire time.
It's like, how are they all so happy? Drunk.
We were just sloshed. Me and they had permanent employees who I didn't even, there's a cast of characters, but I can get into, but pretty much everybody except for the Autobite, the part-time high schoolers, were just trashed all of the time, including, listen, the owner did not act drunk, but that dude could drink. Oh my God. After having a couple of meals with him, I could not look at whiskey for years. We became friends again later, but now, like, for a long time, we could not. And I always started it not really like happy, like, oh, look at him, he's just pouring me drink after drink. He's like, what's his is mine, and he's like such a great host. And then after a couple of hours, I'm like, you bastard. I have to get up and be at your company at 4 a.m, and you're going to sleep until 10 and go golfing. I hate you so much.
So you have to learn the way of sleeping while you're standing and sweeping, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah. But I had nothing but appreciation for it because like I was staying in his house, which was a mansion at the top floor. And I think 2 other employees stayed there too. Like at first I thought they were living there just to like hang out with me. And I was like, no, I think they live here. They didn't talk much about themselves. There was a young couple who were not a couple, but they were a couple. R and Y, I can call them. I don't want to say their real names. Like, I don't know. This story is so weirdly specific that if they hear it, they're going to be like, I know that guy. But the reason I'm using their names as like letters is like they got up to stuff. Like I said, like alcohol was involved. Everything else was also involved. We got up back and we went right upstairs and they'll like pull out a bag of mushrooms and be like, you down? I'm like, no. We understand. Yeah. This entire situation has been a hallucination for me for the past month. If I take that, I'm never coming back.
Still be there today, just sweeping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll think like, who knows what would happen. I don't know.
Did they ever ask for you to do? So I mean, like you're cleaning, you're bussing, you're welcoming people, you're trying to talk to people, keep them entertained. What else did they ask you to do? I mean, were you like ever asked to be, officiating a wedding or something like that, or
No, but it was kind of funny that I ended up with the job of standing there looking white. That wasn't originally one of my roles, and they called it gaijin manager. Go do the gaijin manager thing, because the idea is like it's a wedding hall, right? So wouldn't it be fun if the manager was an American or a Westerner, right? So and I fell into this role by accident because my dad always taught me, whenever you walk into a place, hold your head up high and pretend like you own it. right? Listen, this might be like I don't know, a white privilege thing. Like I was raised to do this, but it's like it helps compensate for feeling out of place. Just hold your head high and act like you own the place. Just like look around and see these are my people. They're in my place. I hope they're having fun, right? No matter what, I don't care if you're the fry cook at McDonald's. You should look out at the people there and be like, they're at my place. I hope they're having fun. I will take care of them. This is my establishment, right? And I was just doing that, and people would be like, "What are you, the manager or something? Look at you! You think you own this place?" They're giving me shit. Listen, Japanese people really know how to give each other shit, and especially the working class. Like, um, and so, and I was like, "No, didn't even realize I was doing it." And they're like, "No, it's great."
We're selling even more because of this.
Yeah, no, keep doing it. Because people keep asking us like, oh, is he the owner? And we're like, yeah. And they had one part-timer go like, so kana? Like, I don't even know. Like, I wonder, maybe. Like, I'm too low level.
I one day hope to know.
And they liked that. And so they're like, once in a while, if everything was cleaned and there was nobody at the bar, they're like, oi, manager today. go do the manager thing. So I just goes to the corner and I just cross my arms. I look around like I'm supervising everything.
Love
and
it, buddy.
I stand there whitely, a thing at which I excel.
How amazing though, like of a time you're just like, yeah, this will be the time, and be young enough to where you're like not going to question too much of what you're doing while you're doing it. I love it, my friend. I love it. I know we were even talking about prior to this, your kids wanting to go to Japan, and I was kind of like, hey, that's going to be one of the questions. They want to visit as well, just like mine do, and you pretty much answer that your son is finally at a point where you're getting to the I'll let you share about your son then. Let's say like what you're getting to with him.
Yeah, my son is gonna be 14 soon, and like I wasn't trying to indoctrinate my kids into anime and stuff, but it's so mainstream now. And all I have to do is be like, yeah, I can kind of understand, or that I'll sit and watch an anime with him and I'm like, that translation is funny, but here's what he actually said. Here's another way of looking at it, and then that might be funnier. And stuff like that. So he's really enjoys it, and he also reads manga. Something like I never got into comic books or manga myself, but so he's very very into Japanese media, and one of the things I like to point out is like, do you why like that's not a representation of what Japan is like at all.
Yeah.
Like the reason it's crazy is because that's the way they can't be, right? Like it's cathartic. Like, and the reason, and even the ways in which they're very like shy, like, oh, we can't talk about this, can't talk about that. They totally do. Like that is all just those are media tropes and storytelling techniques. Don't make the mistake that that's like what Japan is like. It's not. It's actually better. Like you'll appreciate anime more that you like get in touch with how Japanese folks actually are and how they interact, because their sense of humor is quite subtle sometimes. It's very funny. Sorry, that was a big tangent, but like, so like those are the sorts of conversations I have with all my kids, whatever media they're engaging with. And so he's pretty interested in Japan as a place, and is getting into its history and all that. And so I'm looking forward to bringing him, which is going to be my first time back since this century, I believe.
I know, buddy.
I'm sure a lot's changed.
No, hardly at all, my friend. It's even even having going, like when I was going every year, I'd go back and I was like, things had changed, and I'm just like, what happened? I was only here a year ago. Like, how could it already have changed so much? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you both think about that when you're both able to go. So that'd be.
I mean, in the late 90s, they were having vending machines there that I'm still waiting to appear here, and there's no sign of them. So I assume when I go back, they're going to have like flying vending machines. Like, I don't even know what's going on.
My favorite vending machine that I found was like when we were in Osaka. It was like Yeah, it was like just the pizza vending machine, like and it's just like you walk up, you get your pizza and out you go. And it's basically the equivalent of like a frozen pizza that's just cooked, for you while you're there and you just walk off with it. But still, at the end of the day, I'm like, man, this is just amazing. My son was blown away with how little things cost because of like the huge difference right now in yen to dollar and how much the dollar gets you right now. Is one, but like they're so behind, like companies just can't they don't have it to where they just raise prices 30% or 40% or whatever it is. It's just like that's the price, and they'll incrementally get it to go higher. But like when we went back, he's like, Dad, I went in with like 500 yen and I'm walking out with 3 things. How did this happen? I'm like, I know. It's great. It's great, son.
Yeah. Like, remember when the dollar store had stuff for $1? Like, kind of the equivalent of that. That's fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's well, I guess something to look forward to. I guess maybe my money will help go a little farther than I expect it to.
I know, like when you have that $100 and you get like basically 150 something, back, like that, 15,000 yen back. It's just, you're looking at pricing for things and you're like, oh no, that's not so bad. If this is the dollar to dollar, pricing, it's like, I wouldn't do this. But now that it's not, I'm like, yeah, this opens up so many more things for me. But no, you think that's a trip that you're going to do with all your kids? Or is it like one that like, you're going to do by who's interested in it, like basis?
I'll definitely do a trip with all my kids. My oldest wants to go to Japan, and my middle child also wants to go to Japan. My youngest is a bit of a black sheep, so I don't know what she's going to say where she wants to go. She might say Paris or England or the moon. I actually have no idea, but she's quite young so far, so we'll see what happens when she gets to this.
I feel like there's still time. Well,
yeah, there's plenty of time. She'll figure it out. It's the important thing is they're all going to cost me an enormous amount of money.
As they should, as they should. But yeah. We're definitely going to have you back on after you guys are back from that, just to kind of get a, hey, from then to then, because I'll tell you, from my 2006 to 2017 was already a huge difference in time. And I still get made fun of for bringing my paper maps, but I'm like, hey, one day that zombie apocalypse is going to happen and all the cell service is going to go down. And you know who's going to be able to get around? This guy right here. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. If you're traveling abroad or in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, it's always good to have paper maps. You never know.
And like, do you have any other memories, my friend, as far as things that stand out to you, either from your trip from college or your time, being at the wedding hall, that's just something that sticks with you to this day?
Oh, I got a couple of them. One of them's pretty risque, though. I don't know if that's okay on your show.
for sure.
All right. Whatever you're expecting, it's not it. So I mentioned that my roommates were a kind of a couple and kind of not. They used to fight all the time, but occasionally they would have sex. But and we were in like one room, right? So it was really awkward. Like if you've ever had a college dorm situation, like you could probably imagine what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And usually it's when I'm not there. But one night we went out because we got like a little bonus, and so we went out for shabu shabu. Really fun, by the way, if you haven't done shabu shabu. Really, it's a blast. And so we're sitting around the thing, and my coworker R is like, hey, I know someone who likes you and wants to sleep with you. I'm like, really? Because I've been here for a year, and that's not kind of way, like, I only meet people who are engaged, at the beginning of the day, and then really married at the end, and so like yeah, I know this is a real sex chance, which he said in English, sex a chancey, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, okay, are you telling me who? And then his girlfriend sheepishly raised her hand, and I was like, what, really? He's like, yeah. And I looked at him and he's like, yeah. I'm like, no. And I just started laughing, and I feel terrible to this day because she was kind of devastated and maybe cried a little bit later because I laughed. But then I had to talk to her, and I'm like, I wasn't laughing
At
because
you.
of you. At you, you're very pretty, and we got along. We were friends. I was laughing because like your boyfriend wants to arrange for us to have sex in the room that he's in. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm definitely not doing that with the guy who offered me mushrooms like last week. Like that's not happening. Yeah, we're still friends, okay?
That's it.
So that was my one and only chance to hook up in Japan. So if you were hoping that this ended like way differently, no. It was just super weird and I declined immediately.
I love it, buddy. Love it. I said, yeah, we'll have to talk like as you're beginning to plan your trip and stuff like that, and get you, nice itinerary, something set up for you. Just it'll be a blast. Like I hope it's almost like the same thing, with my son, where it's like, man, I'm like he has his YouTube channel now, and in fact, I'm gonna include a link in one of his more recent episodes in our episode today, because it's going to be minus Jim's social media contacts. So just cause, but I'll include Sam's too. He's talking about his planning for going to Japan and how he's going about doing it, and he was way more prepared than I thought in some regards. He's got a nice spreadsheet going of expenditures and things, and I'm like, man, son, I'm like, you're doing this right. So
I'll be
interested
to your podcast.
Yeah. It's like I'll be interested though. So if you would like to hear how a 22-year-old who doesn't act like a 22-year-old all the time, and he's really doing a nice job pulling together his trip and pulling together his show. So as a dad, even if I wasn't a dad, I'd promote this just because, hey, like anybody at any age, it doesn't matter if I was 50, 60, 70, planning your trip and following through with it and having it happen is an accomplishment, no matter what your age is. But for me, seeing, him doing that, it's like, Jim, I've done something right in my life. There's one, so, happy for him. So it'll be good. Good. Is there any, sorry, my friend, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I am too. I am too. I remember just seemed like only yesterday we were like buzzing about how he was going to get a driver's license, and now he's like, yeah, I'm planning a trip to Japan, no big deal.
Yeah. Be gone for a month and a half. It's like, okay, enjoy it. You're young. Do it before you start working all the time. He's got a job, but when you get your whatever job you're going to be following through, it's way harder to ask for them to give you a month and a half off then. So, do you have any other podcast, games, books, anything having to do with Japan or not do with Japan that you want to share before we roll out for the day, my friend?
I'm sorry, no, I don't have any pluggables. I'm just a corporate drone.
It's all that matters. Get the money. Get it home. Well, thank you again, my friend, for joining us today. I truly appreciate it.
It was really nice to be here. And oh yeah, I got to mention, like my kids listen to this podcast. It's in their rotation because they listen to podcasts at night. So they're gonna hear this. I'm not going to tell them it's coming.
You're gonna be like, Dad, what are you doing?
What's mushrooms? Yeah.
That's right. Portobello. Thank you, my friend. You have to let me know after they do. Look forward to hearing about it. So on behalf of Lost Without Japan and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for being with us today for this interview. I very much look forward to having all of you on board again on our next regularly scheduled episode as we continue our discussion on Japan, travel, culture, and your Lost Without moments. To everyone out there, Oginki Day. Stay well, my friends.